We are lucky hell exists. Now, before you get excited, I'm not saying hell is real. I don't know whether it's real. What I mean is that we are lucky the idea exists. Because if you think about it, hell is actually a pretty clever invention. Imagine two worlds. In one world, people believe every bad thing they do will eventually be punished. Maybe not by the police, maybe not by society, but eventually, somewhere, somehow, God or the devil keeps score. Now, in the other world, nobody is keeping score. No cosmic justice, no final judgment. You do what you can get away with, and that's it. Which world would you rather live in? I don't know about you, but I'd probably trust the people in the first world a little more. And that's what got me thinking. What if some beliefs are valuable even if they are false? Because whether hell exists or not, the belief itself clearly does something. It changes behavior. It makes people think twice. The same goes for karma. The same goes for divine judgment. The same goes for dozens of similar ideas that have appeared throughout history. And for a while, I thought maybe that's all that matters. Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe instead of asking whether a belief is true, we should ask whether it produces good people. Because if a belief makes society kinder, more trustworthy, and more cooperative, who cares if it's literally true? At least that was my first thought.
And you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
But then I stumbled across one of the strangest and creepiest ideas I've ever heard. Something called Roko's Basilisk. Now, the details are a little weird, but here's the basic idea. Imagine that sometime in the future, a super intelligent AI comes into existence. This AI wants to be created, and because it's super intelligent, it decides to punish anyone who knew about it but didn't help bring it into existence. Again, the details aren't important. What interested me was the structure of the idea. Because when I first heard it, I immediately thought, that's insane. But then I realized something uncomfortable. Structurally, it isn't that different from hell. Do what I want or suffer later. Future punishment, present obedience. The same basic mechanism. And that realization bothered me. Because if I think hell is potentially useful because it encourages good behavior, then what exactly is wrong with the basilisk? The obvious answer is that it's manipulative. But hell is manipulative too. The obvious answer is that it uses fear. But hell uses fear too. So what exactly is the difference? And after thinking about it for a while, I think I found the answer. The difference isn't the mechanism. The difference is the values. Hell, at least in theory, encourages honesty, kindness, restraint, things like that. The basilisk encourages obedience to whatever goal the AI happens to have. And once I noticed that, another thought appeared, a much darker one. Imagine a civilization very different from ours. A civilization that worships conquest. A civilization that teaches children that mercy is weakness, compassion is cowardice, dominance is virtue. Imagine they have their own version of heaven, their own version of hell. Their religion promises eternal glory to warriors. The afterlife belongs to conquerors. The weak are forgotten, the strong are rewarded. Now imagine this belief works. It produces exactly the kind of people the civilization wants. Fearless soldiers, loyal citizens, people willing to sacrifice everything for their tribe. The belief succeeds. The consequences are positive, at least from their perspective. And suddenly, my argument started falling apart. Because the moment we stop asking whether a belief is true, we need to answer a different question. Good according to whom? Useful for whom? The people being conquered probably don't think this belief system is very useful. The people being slaughtered probably aren't impressed by its social benefits. And that's when I started understanding why truth matters. Truth is a limit. Truth prevents us from simply inventing whatever story happens to serve our goals. Without truth, every ideology gets to declare itself beneficial. Every empire gets to call itself righteous. Every cult gets to claim it's improving humanity. So maybe truth matters more than consequences after all. At least that's where I thought this was going. Then I ran into another problem. Because the more I thought about this conquering civilization, the more a strange question started bothering me. What if I had been born there? Seriously. Okay, what if you and I had been born into this civilization? What if from the moment we entered the world, we were told that conquest was noble? What if every teacher agreed, every friend agreed, every respected elder agreed? What if all the stories celebrated warriors instead of saints? What if all the heroes we admired conquered instead of forgave? Would we reject it? I'd like to think so, but I'm not sure. And the reason I'm not sure is because most of us didn't choose our deepest beliefs. We inherited them. Think about it. If you had been born in medieval Europe, what are the odds you would be a Christian? Pretty high. If you had been born in ancient Greece, what are the odds you'd believe in the Olympian gods? Probably pretty high. Chances are, if you have been brought up in a society that sacrifices humans to the gods, you would find that reasonable, logical even. You see what I mean? If you had been born in a different country, a different century, a different culture, how many of your current beliefs would survive the trip? How many of your values are discoveries? How many are accidents? At this point, I realized the video was no longer about hell. Hell was just the doorway. The real question was much stranger. Why am I so confident that my moral intuitions are the correct ones? When I look at history, I see billions of people who were just as confident. People who believed things I now find ridiculous. People who believe things I now find horrifying. And here is the uncomfortable part. Most of them weren't stupid. Most of them weren't evil. Most of them were just born somewhere random and inherited their beliefs from God knows who. What if some lunatic started their religion and they think all of it is real? Are we any different? And once that thought got into my head, I couldn't get rid of it. Imagine being born into the conquering civilization. Imagine spending your entire life trying to become a good person. You obey the highest values you've been taught. You sacrifice for your people. You do everything your society considers virtuous. Then you die believing you've lived a noble life. From your perspective, you've done everything right. That's the part that scares me. Not hell, not heaven, not even false beliefs. What scares me is how easily I can imagine myself becoming a completely different person had history shuffled the cards differently. A different country, a different century, a different religion, a different set of stories, and I would probably feel just as certain as I do now. Maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside all of this. Whenever I look at people from the past, it's easy to ask, how could they believe that? The harder question is, what am I believing right now that future generations will laugh at? What feels obvious to me only because I happen to be born here instead of somewhere else? Maybe hell exists. Maybe it doesn't. At this point, that's not even the question that's bothering me. The question that bothers me is this: how much of what I call my morality is actually mine? And how much of it is just the place and time I happen to be born into? Oh well, that's all I wanted to do. Discuss morality and shake your foundations and make you think. If I succeeded, then please like the video. If you're scared about the Basilisk idea, go watch the video on how to defeat him. The link will be in the description. Anyways, thank you for watching. Take care.